here out of your grow bed and sell it as a liquid fertilizer. Okay? So I'm just talking to you about revenue generation opposed to just growing the food up top. This is aquaponics in Hawaii. And anybody familiar with Hawaii? Way out in the middle of the ocean, right? These are floating rafts, and they have Mozambique tilapia growing and saltwater asparagus, okay? This is out in the middle of the ocean on the island. So the way they harvest it is they put on a bodysuit, they walk through the water, they take all of the rafts and they push them into an area where they harvest all of that saltwater asparagus. Now the fish, they could herd the fish in and harvest the fish anytime. They also grow, I can't think of the name of this other product that they create, but as you can see, so there's 3 different methods we've shown you thus far, right? And the idea is that farming is much, much more simpler than it used to be. So you don't have to worry about the things that I just said earlier about your harvest, your overhead, which is really critical. So you should be able to have a nice balance sheet at the end of a harvest where your profits are way up here opposed to down here, or you fell, or Mother Nature came through with a wild storm and just wiped everything out. Well, if you're growing indoors, you're in control, right? So you should be able to replicate that on a monthly basis, weekly basis, to a point where you are in control of your farm. Now, these are just here things that I've noticed here in Africa. You got so many different things that you could put soil in to grow. So don't be afraid to try something simple like this, just a little box, right? That someone throwing away. You take that and you're growing food in and you're selling it back. And it's cheap. It's a cost-effective way for you to go into business without having to endure a lot of overhead. If you're going to grow tomatoes or viney crops, always put it on the wall. You don't want it in the middle of your farm because it takes up too much room, right? Always put them on toward of a wall, and then you can trellis like tomatoes, melons, things of that nature. You could just trellis in it and have the support necessary. But so this is over in Hawaii. I was there some years ago at the university, and I was shown this, and I thought it was very interesting. Now the guy right here, he was from Saudi Arabia, way over in Hawaii. Now he has his own farm. But here, Louisiana, hydroponics. Remember I said earlier about gutters, rain gutters? That's all this is, rain gutters. They're growing lettuce, right? Every 2 weeks they harvest. All by the palm of the hand on the iPhone, right? This was after a major hurricane. Now, the thing about in a controlled environment, you do need good photosynthesis. So we got lights, right? You got a good lighting system here, but the material, as you could see, this is mostly all PVC. This is not steel, right? Cheap structure. And if they wanted to, they could actually be growing food on these rails. So you could take advantage of all of that open space up in there and have other crops growing. They just hang them in a basket, right? So down here is where all of your media is, your nutrients and everything. This is a drip right here. That's a drip. So the water just recirculates throughout that entire system. And these guys, they're making a lot of money. Here, this is like an edible garden, outdoors, you know, growing herbs and spices, the old traditional way. That's still fine if you want to do that. But I wanted to give you a little bit more, open your mind up to diversify your growing operation so that the type of revenue that you want to generate will always be there for you. This is growing cannabis under grow lights. Now, growing cannabis is a little bit more cost intense, you know, because unless your farm is powered by solar, then you negate all of that. Don't worry about it. But here we're using lava rock. Lava rock will retain the nutrients that allows this plant to just grow vigorously and again really fast. You may be able to harvest every 3 months depending on what strand that you're growing, but every 3 months you can look at harvest and then harvesting out of using lava rock. So that's I talked to you about 3 different media to use, right? Coconut coir, lava rock, and vermiculture, right? Or vermipost. This one is a garden that I put in the schools. And these are all vermipost here with the worms in the bins. And I have 6 bins here that goes all the way around, right? And on the bottom back here is a reservoir, 30-gallon reservoir, where all of the nutrients are stored. So we basically pump it out through the drip system, and then we drain it all back to this reservoir where we recirculate it again. Real easy. Same thing. Like I said, you got all of this material here. Say you got a 50-gallon barrel. You know what I mean? You got a 50-gallon barrel, split it in half, now you got a grow bed. Put your plants in there, doesn't cost you a lot of money. It's really inexpensive. So this is what I call vermiponics. It's just like aquaponics or hydroponics, except for you're using the red worms instead of the fish waste, right? This is another garden I have in a school that's similar to the one that I just shared with you. So these are the students planting their first crop. And this is inside of a greenhouse. Let's just say you want to start a nursery. It doesn't have to be all about food. You could grow perennial plants. Like I said, you can have a nursery business. It doesn't have to be about farming and food all the time. It could just, you can sell plants to other people so they can grow at home. This one is hydroponics. And right here we have plastic lining. And underneath here is a floating raft, which is about this thick. And just like I was telling you about the bamboo, there's a little hole like every 6 inches apart where we put the media in, and the plants just sit right on top of the water. And they uptake all of the beneficial bacteria. As a result of that, you got exponential growth occurring inside a controlled environment. So this is like lettuce. So you go in your greenhouse in the morning, you say, "Let us pray." Again, barrels that are thrown away, we're taking them now, we're growing food in it. Cost effective, a different variety of greens, collard greens. African American eat a lot of collard green, turnip greens, kale. So you can say kale, yeah. All right. So here's another one inside of a nursery. But this is all aquaponics here. For me, I wouldn't necessarily grow this way because you can grow aquaponically, but what happens here? When it's time to harvest, you have to basically take this whole raft off, and it may weigh 15 pounds. Let's just say you got a little back pain. That's not good, right? You got to bend down. So what you do is you raise this up to about the waist high. So you just standing there, and then you can transfer it to put it on a conveyor or whatever, and you don't have to worry about, back injury. And tomatoes, vine crops, all over here. Different lettuce, different types of lettuce. And you can do, let's see, 3, 6, 9, about 20 different plants on each raft, right? Now imagine you was harvesting and your place was this big and you had to harvest every 2 weeks. Or you could stage it where you could actually do this on a weekly basis. I said it'll grow every 2 weeks, but if you harvest this week and you replant, you're going to get a cycle going where you actually have food available for sale on a weekly basis. Now that's a big change from back in the day when my grandfather was growing food. So 21st century farming is it. We just have to think about it, look at the revenue generation, how many employees you need, but you can keep your expenses down and your overhead down. And way back here is where we have the fish tank, and we basically just pumping water into all of these grow beds, right? So there's no fish under here. All of the fish is way back here, right? In a big fish tank. I see lot of tanks around here. There you go. You got a lot of material that you could use. Don't be afraid to raise your grow beds up so that you don't have to be bending down all the time, right? Easy on you. This is a floating raft in a bigger tub, right? But this is all lettuce. So you see over here, let's see. Yeah, back here, this might be ready next week. This one will be ready the week after, and so on, 2 weeks later. So you got it in rotation. You got a constant source of revenue coming in. Same thing, all your vine crops out over here, right? And here you got your lettuce, your kale, your mustard greens, and things of that nature. Really simple. The one thing about indoors is you do need good photosynthesis, so direct sunlight is really paramount to your success when you're growing this way, right? So just be mindful of that and choose the right material. This one, hydroponics. As you can see, there's one hole there, there's a hole there, hole there, hole there. So you may have 40 plants, 200 plants growing right here, okay? That's all hydroponics. And you basically recirculating that water. Over here, you got your pump and your timer. And right here, the water comes in, it flows down, back over here. Real simple. This one here, I had set up at the state fair in California. And I have a lot of stuff going on here, but this is 100 plants and 15 square feet of space. You know, something like this. 100 plants, right? So down here is my fish tank, right? I got a pump and a timer. So we pump the water up, gravity flows down. Now I can take it a step further, put a solar panel on it. Now I don't have any utility costs, right? So when you think about your farms, think about using solar, because that's the key to long-term profitability, where you're going to be making a lot of money. But this one has a floating raft here, And then I have gutters hanging down, suspended. And in here, I have what we call a wire mesh. That's where my media is. And every time that the water flows down through, all of that beneficial bacteria is uptaken by the roots of the plants. It's another way to grow inexpensively. This is, like I said, it's 15 square feet of space. So you don't really have to be concerned about room when you can actually take this same system and put it on a trailer and go all over the city demonstrating how to grow hydroponically, aquaponically on a flatbed truck, right?